Well, I, along with the others, welcome you here today to a big old bundle of paradox. That's where we are right now. It's Memorial Day weekend, and the beaches are jammed, and there are picnics and barbecues. No parades this year. It looks different than it did. But it's a time of celebration, the beginning of summer, a lot of excitement. And yet, meanwhile, hundreds of people are putting flags and flowers on veterans' graves today and tomorrow. To everything, there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. And there is a time to mourn, and there is a time to dance. And right now, we're splitting them right down the middle. This is a time of confusion, a time of upset, a time of great concern. And so I thought of Ecclesiastes and a time for every purpose under heaven. And one version of the Bible that I have that I enjoy using is annotated, and it's got an essay at the start of each book that explains who wrote it or who they think wrote it and why. And the writer of Ecclesiastes, and they don't know who it was, for a long time it was thought to be King Solomon, but now they doubt that. It was a figure from the assembly. It was somebody in their version of Congress at the time who wrote this. And it says the writer of Ecclesiastes was puzzled and wondered why, with the covenant that the people had with their God, there was still this confusion and lack of clarity and lack of purpose moving forward. And I thought that is just absolutely perfect for today, for this time. So my job today, our job, all of us who are presenting to you this service, is to bring you comfort, but also to validate your feelings of discomfort. We don't know what we're doing right now. For a while we were closed, society was, and we adjusted to that. Now we're told we should be reopened, parts of us, different ways, down to the different counties and towns across the country. And we don't know exactly how that's going to look. And for a while we thought our jobs were going to look a certain way, and then they changed, and then there was some money that came to us, and then it went away or it stopped coming, and now we just don't know what we're going to do. And we're heading into summer, and kids are graduating from school into a place of uncertainty. And you know all this. And I'm not trying to disturb you by telling you this, but I want to validate the fact that this is where we all are, including me. And somebody said to me the other day, when is the center going to reopen? And I said, the center has never closed. The building's closed. We don't know when the buildings are going to reopen. But this center is busier than ever. We have 33 people in science mind classes right now going on. We have multiple groups meeting that we know of, formal, established, structured groups meeting by Zoom and other platforms, but all sorts of other conversations taking place between people acting in support for one another. The center has not closed. But neither is it fully open. As I look at it, a sea of empty chairs, and I know a lot of you would like to be here today, and you've heard that you can be, and actually legally you could have been for a while yet, but that's not enough for us. Because there's also civic responsibility. There's also following the guidelines of the people who know more about infectious disease than we do, and having you feel safe, and having you be comfortable. So we meet in this way for now. And it's not just here, but everywhere you go. People don't know whether to wear masks or not. Some of them split that difference by wearing a kerchief around their neck, which if they're in a mask-friendly crowd, they can use and pull up over their nose, and if they're not, it just looks like sort of a neckerchief thing going on. People don't know what to do. The center has not closed, and neither has your center. And that's where I go, is to my center, to be reminded of certain things, and it's where I encourage you to go. I wrote this piece last night to our board because we're having a lot of conversations about what the future is going to be for us here. And I wrote this piece and sent to them, and I said something in there about finding a place within yourself where you can go and receive the truth, find the truth of your own being within your heart. That's the purpose of the spiritual center. That's the essential part of a spiritual center, spiritual practice. Spiritual practice is essential. Spiritual centers are wonderful. I think they're so wonderful, I actually started one. And I've spent a really long time with it because it's never stopped being wonderful. Even when it's strange. And you know, sometimes the best relationship is strange and wonderful. Sometimes we have a strange and wonderful time of creative life, but it's never stopped being wonderful. But it's not essential. What's essential is spiritual practice. The spiritual center is essential insofar as it shows and models spiritual practice. And this is what we're doing with our online classes and groups and so on, is showing the spiritual practice that we have now, even when we can't gather as a group. So what I have to remember to do is my spiritual practice, and I get reminded that everything's going to be all right. I get reminded that even though there are wars in this world, and that has made typically heroes, it's made heroes and it's made memorials, that even though there's war in this world, we are one human family. And Alan Watts, in this book, the collection called Just So that I've been referencing this month, there were talks that he gave that were transcribed. He's got a section in there called Synergy in the One World Town. He's writing this 50 years ago. And he talks about how anymore, he says that if you go from one city to another, it's more or less the same thing, because the city that you're visiting has much of the culture and all the way down to the food, you know, of the city that you left. And he said there are wonderful Japanese restaurants in Los Angeles, and so if you go to Tokyo, it's sort of like it's a version of Los Angeles, and Los Angeles is a version of Tokyo. And the point that he was getting at was not don't travel. The point that he was getting at was that we're one human family who fall in love with each other's customs and ways of being. And so these spread across the earth. And it's a metaphor for how we're one family. And we're all in relationship. When I mentioned strange and wonderful relationships, we're all in relationship with each other. When you talk about relationships, it often is about your housemates, you know. It's about the people that are really close to you and the animals that are really close to you. And these are the relationships that you have, that you describe and that you snap pictures of and send to your friends and you mention in your Christmas letter and all the rest. But really, we're all in relationship with the other almost 8 billion of us on this planet, most of them, the vast, vast majority of whom we will never meet in this incarnation. We're in relationship with them, and we're working out this relationship. And it's strange. It's really strange how all of this unfolds in the way that it does. And we don't know where it's all headed. What the meaning of all of this is, I've brought that up every week. We've been doing this online only. Because we don't know where all of this is heading, and one day we'll look back on this, we may have more of an explanation than we do now. What I do want you to realize is that it's heading somewhere. And things are not as they were, but they are also not as they are going to be. Things are not as they are going to be. It will not always look like this. So if it doesn't look like that back then, and we don't know what this over here is going to look like in the long run, then where can we pay attention? In the present moment. This is where we have to focus right now, is in the present. How do I feel right now? What's the next step to take right now? What's the next best thing for me to do? To take good care of myself and to take care of the people around me, or at least not put them at risk. So you make decisions based on a risk-benefit assessment. That sounds clinical and corporate, but there it is. What's the risk to this? What's the benefit to this? What's the risk to introducing yourself to a new person? Rejection. What's the benefit? The possibility of a lifelong friendship. What's the risk in creating a piece of artwork? Possible rejection. What's the benefit? A possible lifelong avocation or vocation What's the risk to getting up here and singing? Possible rejection. Although it won't be written on the faces of the people in the room because there basically aren't any, so it'll come in the comments stream on the Facebook page. But is that likely to happen? No. But it runs through the mind of every performer, the possibility of rejection, the possibility of comparison, of judgment. Well, you're not like so-and-so, or you're not like you were last time, or 10 years ago. You know, all of this runs through your mind. What's the benefit? Countless. Hundreds of people hearing this music, touched, moved, forgetting their pain for a moment, forgetting their limitations for a moment, and having maybe a good cry, or having, I heard your second song, it's upbeat. And your second song, having a flood of endorphins in the brain. They say that when you listen to a piece of music, if you listen to a piece of music that's familiar to you, and you like, there's a really good part. You know that in most songs there's a part you really like when the chorus comes in or they change key. There's a great moment, and I love myself the way I am before the fourth verse when you change key and it's like, you know, it all moves up. Well, at that moment, they say there's a noticeable endorphin flood in the brain, causes great good feeling, and that you can mimic that even in anticipation of it when you're not listening to the music, but you're thinking about the music. You're thinking about a song to yourself. What are the benefits to this? They're countless. What are the risks? Not so much. In fact, the three scenarios I described, the risks are all rejection. And if you're rejected one place, you're accepted 100,000 other places. If one person says, well, I don't care for what you're doing, the world will beat a path to your door to hear what you're doing. Other people will come to you. Look at the long list, which we'll get into some other time, but the long list of notable musicians, artists, writers, etc., who were rejected across the board in their earlier works, or the works that they went on to become famous for. They were told by publishers, music publishers, book publishers, whatever, gallery owners, they told this stuff is redundant, it's derivative, it's no good, you have no talent, you should stop. And they didn't, and they forged ahead. Something about that risk-benefit analysis, you know, caused the benefit to outweigh the risk. Caused the benefit to outweigh the risk. So I was thinking about that in terms of our physical meeting together, as I shared with some others. The risk outweighs the benefit right now. Because you're at home, relaxed, comfortable, enjoying yourself. I'm having a pretty good time too, but I had to get in the car and drive here, and it might rain like mad before we're done, you know. That's what Lisa alluded to in the opening and stuff. And, you know, you get to enjoy this, and you get to do your spiritual practice. I've often hoped in these talks, when we were full, when we had people here, I shared this with you one time. I've hoped people would create more of a dynamic at home for spiritual practice, trying to support that. I would pull up here on a Sunday, and next door to us, you know, there's another church. It's been they've been there longer than we've been here. And I watch those people, I know many of them, well, some of them, and they come in with their Bibles, and they go out with their Bibles, and I know that when they hear what they're told in their sermon, they go home and they get the family together, and they sit around the table and they discuss it. And they pray together. And I cannot encourage that enough. The Bible, the Science of Mind textbook, both of them, the Bible of your faith system, the Quran, the Gitas, whatever is in your tradition, and especially in your heart, sit with it, get the kids involved, talk about it, ask what it means. Ernest Holmes, the Bible looks easy sometimes compared to Ernest Holmes. People say this, they've said it in these classes, you know, and you read Ernest and it's like, what is he talking about? And sometimes you ask me, or you ask our practitioners and ministers, and we give you our feedback. But you know what's really cool is ask your kids what he means. Ask the people across the dinner table what he means. get folks together to talk about this. And this is what's happening now, kind of because it has to. Instead of it coulda, it has to, because we don't have the in-person gathering. So we're doing our work privately. And that will continue when this is done. So the whole thing's a metaphor. The whole thing's a metaphor. Everybody excited about the beginning of summer, school being out, ready for something. What's going to be different about summer? Well, it's a mindset. People just associate summer with freedom, joy, and happiness, and all like this. Most people I know work all summer because I'm a grown-up. But there's still a part of me that around the middle to the end of May, I start thinking about school being out. Maybe put on a little Alice Cooper, you know. But I start thinking about school being out, and it's free, and there's this, and then maybe camp, you know, or out in the woods and all. And I think, when's the last time I went to camp? When's the last time I went out in the woods and stayed there past dark, you know? But there's a part of me that kind of is still sort of there. And that's what has come out to play in society this weekend. People are tired of being pent up. People have had enough. They say, I'm tired of waiting. I thought of a scenario. I don't want to embed this in your consciousness, but it's an apt analogy. Where you're driving along and a side street comes out onto the street that you're on, right? You're heading in traffic. And there are like 2 or 3 cars at the side street waiting to pull out. And one of them does, and traffic's still a long way off. And the second one does, and traffic's still a ways off. And the third one says, the heck with it, I'm tired of waiting. And they pull right out in front of somebody because they're tired of waiting. Because it's like the other 2 got to go, and I've sat here long enough. And there's a screech of brakes and a honk of horns, and maybe a shaking of fists. You know, you pulled right out in front of me. Their thought was, well, I'm tired of waiting. Well, there's a difference between something that we honor and cherish in this teaching, which is called being childlike. There's a difference between that, being childish. There's a difference between that, saying, I'm going to get mine no matter what. Because that dishonors the relationship that we have. No, you don't know that person in that car that you just pulled out in front of. But you know what? They're your brother or sister. They're your family. They are a godly. You would not want somebody doing that to you. In fact, you'd be all outraged and all kind of self-righteous about it. Could you believe what you tell people? Can you believe what this person, I was coming home today, can you believe what this person did? They had you know? And so we get to be right. We get to be right if we're the offended one. And then we think, well, next time, you know, somebody did it to me. Eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth we haven't gotten to in our Bible class yet, but we will soon. And it was a way of doing business in the ancient world that was known not to work, that was known to be without mercy, without care, without compassion. And that's why the great spiritual teacher, as Reverend Arthur calls him, the mastermind scientist, that's why he came along. And he said, I come not to break the law, but to fulfill it. Love one another, love one another. Forgive one another, forgive the injustices, forgive those, bless those who persecute you. Can you carry that to an extreme where nobody ever stands up for themselves or anybody else? Yes, you can. But the default should be let it go. Until and unless you absolutely cannot. The default should be to see it differently, to not operate in childish ways, but in a childlike way. So what's the childlike way? Let's talk about what we want to do instead of what doesn't work. The childlike way is to look at things with innocence and trust and wonder. And I know that seems a stretch right now. And some of you are bored to tears. I know that because I hear from you. You know, and you've tried learning Latin and to play the marimbas and all of the things that the free time was supposed to give you to do. And you've gardened and you've knitted and you're like crying out loud. You know, I want to go to the mall. I'd have there be people there, not have to be masked up and at a distance and all these rules and regulations. I know you're bored and you're tired. But if you live just a little bit more in the present rather than the how long has this been going on kind of mode, a greater peace will overtake you. And this is what our animals do. And animals have had a lot of wonderful memes made about them during this time. One of my favorites is the cat that's busy sewing masks for its owner, saying, "Go back to work, Karen. Tired of you being here, you know." But animals have a different consciousness of time, and we could learn from them. We humans have a very sophisticated idea of time, which serves us except when it doesn't. And this may be one of those times when it doesn't, because we say this has gone on 8 weeks, 9 weeks, 10, 11 weeks, how long is this going to, and then you imagine suffering out into the future. The animal tends to take it as a moment, as a moment, as a moment. We can do more of this. We can do more of this. Find your peace within yourself. Find your center within yourself. We are here to assist you. All of us are, I said, we're busier than ever. The ministers, practitioners, and everybody else at the center, we're busy calling each other, talking to each other. When I'm not teaching a class or preparing for the next one, I'm talking to lots of folks here in town and around the country, on the phone, by the internet and stuff, reassuring one another. It's not all me reassuring them, you know, but we're in this conversation together. It's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. How are you right now? How are you right now? You go to a practitioner sometimes, and or anytime really, and you say, I'm worried about what's going to happen in the future. The practitioner is typically going to say to you, well, how are you right now? You say, well, right now I'm all right, but next week, and well, how are you right now? How are you right now? And it's like, focus on your breathing, focus on this moment, focus on this moment. Why? Because in this moment is all the power that you need. All the power is present right in this moment. All the power to be greater than you are. I saw a quote, just came to me the other day. I saw a quote, and I don't know who it's by. It says something like, in this moment, you can trust or you can worry. And either way, you spend the same amount of energy. That seems fair. So, there's a risk-benefit analysis made between trust and worry. Is it serving me right now to worry? If so, what are 3 things I can do to alleviate my worry? 3 real practical steps that I can take to check my health, to check my work, my money, the people around me, not in any particular order, but what are steps I can take? And then having done that, now I will know this. There is one life. That life is spirit. That life is form. That life is pure potential. That life is all the life there is. And that life is my life right now. It's the life of every being on this planet. Whether I agree with them or not, whether they pull out in front of me in traffic, or they're my closest companion, and the discordant voices that I hear telling me all what's wrong and who's to blame are the voices of uncertain and scared godlings like me, who have a different microphone on a different stage. And suddenly there's no us or them. No winners and losers. No liberals, no conservatives. No Americans, no foreigners. Distinctions of citizenship, of class, of creed, of color are lifted up to a place where there is just one. One longing for respect, recognition, affection, attention. One longing for a canvas on which to paint, an instrument on which to play, a voice through which to sing, a longing for an audience to enjoy that which is done. So it has been since the dawn of time. One family of life on this planet. Now, what I do with that in this present moment is this. I'll go within myself, find that place that knows this, and hang out there. As Scripture says, I will pitch my tent in the wilderness. I will pitch my tent there, and I will dwell there in that place of oneness. And when nagging concerns and distractions and all make their way in, which they probably will, I bless them as my own fears, projections, my own doubts, and unhealed energies and incomplete communications and so forth, and I reconcile these things within myself, and I go right back to thinking about the one. For it has within it all manner of things necessary to meet the case now and in the coming future. Ideas are making their way to me right now, supply, outlets for creative expression. They're forming right now in ways that I could not previously have imagined. So I bless this all and I call it good, and I close this treatment with my deepest respect and love and thanks for those who have given their lives for freedom, those who have been called to war, who know better than anyone that war is hell. The futility of war as a mechanism for human communication. Still, they went when they were called. And they did what they had to do. And they are our heroes, our ancestors. I further memorialize this morning all of those who have passed from the coronavirus, including amazing individuals that we know of, where we recognize the names who contributed so much to the human scene. And so many godlings you and I don't personally know, across the world. But they were family, and they still are. And they've left their forms now. And I call for whatever it takes for this thing to decline, to end, be that a vaccine or some form of intervention on the human level, or something, here I call it supernatural, that just cleanses and purifies the systems, the breathing, the interior mechanisms of all the human family, so that this becomes simply a distant memory and we move forward, though in a new way. For this knowing, for these claims placed on spirit which are not too great for it to meet, for nothing is, and for the response that is sure to come in its own way, in its own time, just perfectly suited, for the beliefs that each one of us holds, I am filled with gratitude, filled with feeling. I release this word now into creative law, calling it done, and so it is.
And so it is. All right, so as we bring this to a close, I'm going to briefly reflect on the fact that it is Memorial Day. Well, tomorrow will be Memorial Day, which I'm a proud Air Force brat. I grew up in the Air Force. I grew up in the military. I was literally born Well, my father was in boot camp, so I was born in a military hospital. And Memorial Day is about those who made the ultimate sacrifice. It is the ones who answered the call and did not come home. And with what is going on in the world today, Memorial Day means so much more because there are so many more souls that are no longer with us for a reason that is currently beyond our understanding and may always be beyond our understanding in this form. But that doesn't mean that there won't be a time when we will understand it. So, not to end on a grim note, I want to end on a joyous note because the point of Memorial Day is to remember. And when you remember, that person is never truly gone. They live right here in your heart. So in knowing that there is one life, one power, one presence, one love, I am a part of that love. That love flows through me. And as it flows through me, so too do I know that it flows through each and every one of you. You are what makes that love. You are the hands and feet and heart and the listening ears and the loving arms of that source. So as we move through this Memorial Day in whatever way that we choose, know that we are together on a level that is so intimate that it can never be taken away from us. So I'm knowing in that loving moment that the healing that you are seeking is seeking you. The love that you are seeking is seeking you. And as we move into our new normal and we move into our new safe, we will all be together again soon in that love. And I'm grateful for this place. I'm grateful for these people. I'm grateful for you people watching online. We are grateful for you, and we love you. And I relax into this knowing it is so, even as I speak these words, and so it is. So it is.
Say with me now, something wonderful is happening through me.
Something wonderful is happening through me.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in my
I feel it
mind.
in everything I am.
I feel it in everything I am.
I choose it.
I choose
I
it.
trust it.
I trust
I
it.
use it.
I use
And I
it.
love it.
And I love it. And so it is.